In this video, I'm going to break down how to actually implement anything that you practice in the practice room as an instrumentalist so that you can actually use it as an improviser. I've talked to so many people who just think improvisation is too difficult, or they think they're not creative enough, or they weren't just born with this thing that gives them the ability to make something up on the spot when they're playing music. And I am here to tell you today that that is absolutely not true. Using this four-step system that I'm about to take you through, anybody can start improvising as long as they know a few key principles. Now, why would you listen to me about this? That's a good question. My name is Michael, and I'm a saxophonist, improviser, and music educator with over 10 years of experience performing and teaching. I lead my own bands, I play as a sideman in other folks' bands, and I've helped over 50 musicians take their first steps into the vast world of improvised music as well. So watch all the way till the end of this video if you want to learn how to take your improvisation skills to the next level, or even just take your first steps into improvising as an instrumentalist. You're not going to believe how simple step 4 is, so make sure you watch all the way until the end. So diving right in here, step 1 is to pick a piece of material and play it in its simplest form, straight up and down. Let's say we're talking about a major or a minor scale, or a major or minor arpeggio, maybe a triad or a seventh chord. It can even be something like a jazz lick that you heard in a recording and stealing is a good thing, by the way, stole from your favorite player. Play that thing in its simplest form, exactly as it was written down or exactly as you heard it in the recording. Get really intimately familiar with it on your instrument. Play it not until you can play it right, but until you can't play it wrong. That's something somebody used to tell me all the time. Play it until you can't play it wrong, okay? So that's learning it in its simplest form. And that might sound obvious, but the more familiarity you have with the piece of material that you're trying to integrate into the music that you're playing, the easier it will be and the more naturally it'll come out over time. Okay, so make sure you are intimately familiar with this piece of material. So step 2 involves getting creative with that piece of material outside of the context of any kind of song or jazz tune, anything you're trying to improvise within. Okay, so when I say get creative with it, I mean play it full range on your instrument. Don't just play it in one octave. I mean change the direction of the notes. If you're playing a scale straight up and down, maybe get familiar with the scale in thirds or fourths or even fifths, okay? Change the order of the notes. So if you're playing an arpeggio, try messing with that order. Instead of playing 1-3-5, play 1-5-3 or 3-5-1. You can take that shape full range. I really like to think about shapes as an improviser. Or if you're playing a jazz lick, start changing up the rhythm. Maybe if it's an eighth note line, see how it can work as something that you put into a triplet rhythm instead. So I'm thinking of whatever piece of material I'm practicing, whether it's a scale, an arpeggio, or a jazz lick or something. I'm thinking of it like molding clay. I don't want to keep that clay as just this gelatinous gray blob, right? I want to mold it into something useful. I want to mold it into something. I don't know exactly where it is yet. Remember, I'm out of context. I don't know exactly what this piece of clay is going to be, but I'm messing around with it. I'm trying to see something bigger within this simple thing, this simple piece of material that I'm working with. Oh, and maybe the most important part of this is to play this thing in multiple keys. All 12 keys if you have that ability. If you can't play in all 12 keys quite yet, that's totally okay. Start with just your major scales. I mean, that's a great thing on its own to take through 12 keys. If we're talking about arpeggios or licks or jazz lines, something that you heard from a recording, then just play it in as many keys as you comfortably can. Maybe stretch the boundaries of that a little bit and learn it in 1 or 2 brand new keys, but you don't have to necessarily play something in all 12, although in the long run that will be very helpful. So just to review step 2, we're getting creative with this simple piece of material by messing around with rhythm, octave, and anything else that you can think of as a creative musician, as an improviser. We're starting to think like improvisers here. Step 3 is going to involve putting this thing that you've practiced into the context of whatever music you're trying to improvise within. So whether that's a jazz tune or a top 40 like pop tune that you're going to play in a wedding band, or just like your favorite rock tune that you're always hearing on the radio, you're going to try to more or less force this material in the practice room. You don't want to force it on the bandstand, but in the practice room, you're going to play it in as many ways as you can within the context of the music you're improvising in. So let's say the piece of material you're practicing right now is a triad, okay, a major triads. You're going to find every opportunity to play a major triad in this piece, and you're going to force it in and get creative with that triad. You can get creative rhythmically. Again, you can get creative with the direction of the notes, but you're just going to force this one simple thing in to the music that you're trying to improvise within. I really like to use the example of a 12-bar blues. So in the 12-bar blues, let's say I'm playing in the key of C. I'm going to play C, E, G, a C major triad for the first 4 bars. And then in bar 5, where it goes to the 4 chord, I'm going to play F, A, C. Okay, so this is just an example of how I can force triads in to the form of the 12-bar blues. And remember, there are lots of different ways to be creative about this. You are mostly getting creative with rhythm because it would sound pretty lame to just play ba 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 ba, right? Something like that. So you want to be creative rhythmically. You want to see if you can change the way that you're implementing this thing that you practiced every time that you get there. See how many different ways you can play the same thing, if that makes sense. So just to review step 3, you are more or less forcing in the material that you practiced, that you got creative with, in the context of whatever song or jazz tune you're improvising within, so that it comes out naturally on the bandstand. And that brings us to step 4, okay? When you get to step 4, that means you're playing a gig or a jam session, or you're jamming with friends. Maybe it's a basement session or something. What I want you to do here is forget about it and just play, okay? In the context of a performance, you really don't want to be trying to force things in like you would in the practice room. That leads to overthinking, okay? You don't want to think so hard when you're actually in a performance setting improvising. You want to more or less forget everything you practiced and just play what comes out naturally. Follow your ear, follow your instincts, and trust the process. Everything that you do in the practice room, if you practice it enough and if you practice it the right way, will come out naturally in your playing eventually. It might not be exactly when you expect it, but the more you do this, the faster things will come out. And there is real data behind this, okay? If you've ever heard about the theory of right brain being the logical brain and the left side of your brain being the creative, intuitive part of your brain, what we're doing throughout this 4-step process is starting with the right brain, okay, the logical brain, and we're really picking something apart, okay? We're really getting to know it on such an intimate level that we're transferring it over to the left brain eventually. The creative brain, the intuitive brain, is the part you want to gain access to in step 4 when you're performing as an improviser. And if you practice things enough, and if you get creative enough with those things in the practice room, meaning changing the shapes, changing the rhythms, changing the way you play these things, they will start to come out naturally in your improvisations, I promise. So, final quick review here. Step 1, play the thing in its simplest form, straight up and down. Step 2, get creative with that thing out of context of music, so see how many different ways you can express it, how many different ways you can play it. Step 3, put it into the context of whatever music you're going to perform. This is in the practice room, so you're forcing these things in. And step 4, forget all about that and let it come out naturally eventually, and I promise it will. If you go through more of my content, you'll be able to see exactly what I mean with some of the triads and 7th chords and jazz licks and other of the technical details, so be sure to do that. Be sure to like and subscribe, and there are some links in the description down below that I would love it if you checked out. Again, my name's Michael, and I hope I'll see you again soon. Happy practicing.